We are creatures of longing, always searching for treasure in distant lands. The myth of a better life elsewhere has driven people across oceans for centuries. It convinces us that happiness is a destination, stealing our appreciation for the present. We trade the warmth of home for the uncertain promise of a faraway gleam. But the greatest treasure is not in distant lands. It's the quiet peace within, the gold in our own backyard. Sometimes the home we long to escape is the sanctuary we seek all along. In the heart of a Ghanaian village, where life moved at a rhythm dictated by the sun and the seasons, lived Kwesi. A young man, barely past his boyhood, but with a spirit that yearned for something more, something beyond the familiar embrace of his home. He was a son of the soil, his hands accustomed to the feel of the earth, but his eyes were always fixed on the horizon, searching for a different kind of harvest. The world beyond his village was a tapestry woven with tales and images. Among these, London held a particular allure. Postcards depicting its iconic skyline, the majestic Big Ben, the elegant Tower Bridge, circulated through the village, each a silent invitation to a life less ordinary. And then, there were the stories. Whispered accounts of those who had ventured abroad, braved the unknown, and returned with fortunes. Tales of immigrants who had not only survived but thrived, their lives transformed by the opportunities they found in distant lands. These narratives, often embellished and romanticized, fueled Kwesi's growing discontent. They filled him with a longing so profound it ached in his bones. A yearning for adventure, for success, for a life that resonated with his untapped potential. He felt like a seed buried too deep, struggling to reach the sunlight. His village, once a source of comfort and belonging, began to feel like a cage. The familiar routines, the predictable days, the limited opportunities, they all seemed to stifle his spirit, to hold him back from his true destiny. He longed to break free, to escape the confines of his small world and embrace the vast possibilities that lay beyond. Europe, with its promise of prosperity and opportunity, became his obsession. It was a beacon in the distance, a symbol of hope and a chance to rewrite his story. He envisioned a life of abundance where his hard work would be rewarded and his dreams would finally take flight. But his dreams clashed with the reality of his family's fears. They saw the dangers, the uncertainties, the potential for heartbreak. They pleaded with him to stay, to remain within the safety net of their love and support. They reminded him of the value of community, of the importance of family, of the roots that bound him to this land. But Kwesi's mind was made up. Blinded by the allure of a better future, he disregarded their warnings. He made the difficult decision to sell his most valuable possession, his land, the very foundation of his family's livelihood. It was a sacrifice he believed was necessary, a stepping stone to a brighter tomorrow. With unwavering determination, he vowed to return with riches, to repay his family's sacrifices, and to prove that his journey was not in vain. He clutched the money tightly in his hand, a tangible symbol of his hopes and dreams, a promise to himself and to those he left behind. The journey that followed was far from the glamorous vision he had conjured. It was a brutal test of endurance, a harsh awakening to the realities of migration. He faced scorching deserts that stretched endlessly before him, their sands whispering tales of despair. He braved treacherous waters, their waves threatening to swallow him whole. Each step was a struggle, each mile a victory against the odds. Along the way he witnessed the loss of dignity, the erosion of hope, the crushing weight of desperation. He saw fellow travelers succumb to exhaustion, to illness, to the relentless cruelty of their circumstances. The dream he had so fiercely pursued began to feel like a distant memory, fading with each passing day. London, when he finally arrived, was not the shimmering paradise he had imagined. The streets were gray, the buildings imposing, the atmosphere cold and indifferent. The city seemed to swallow him whole, indifferent to his dreams and struggles. He stepped off the plane with nothing but a worn bag, a heart full of hope, and a spirit already burdened by the weight of his experiences. The city loomed before him, a vast and indifferent landscape, promising nothing and demanding everything. The gold he had sought, the riches he had envisioned, seemed further away than ever, hidden behind layers of bureaucracy, prejudice, and economic hardship. The streets were paved not with gold, but with challenges he had never anticipated. He became one of many, an anonymous face in a sea of faces, lost in the anonymity of the urban sprawl. His dreams felt insignificant, his struggles invisible. He was just another soul swept along in the relentless tide of those searching for a better life, a life that often remained elusive and out of reach. The competition was fierce, the opportunities scarce, and the path to success fraught with obstacles. The cost of his dream, he realized, was far greater than he could have ever imagined. It was not just the money he had spent or the hardships he had endured, but the emotional toll it had taken on his soul. In his pursuit of material wealth, he had unknowingly left behind true treasures, the things that truly mattered in life. He had left behind his family, their love, their laughter, their unwavering support. He had sacrificed love, the warmth of human connection, the comfort of shared experiences. And he had lost his sense of belonging, the feeling of being rooted in a community, of being part of something larger than himself. The faraway gleam that had lured him away from home was nothing more than a mirage, a deceptive illusion that had led him astray. Kweisi's journey had only just begun. The road ahead long and uncertain, filled with challenges he could not yet foresee. But already the price he had paid was steep, a heavy burden on his heart, and a constant reminder of the sacrifices he had made. The myth of Elsewhere, the seductive promise of a better life in a distant land, had claimed another soul, leaving him stranded on the shores of disillusionment. London, a city of dreams, a beacon for those seeking a new life, a fresh start. But the reality often bites harder than the romanticized vision. For Kweisi, stepping onto those cold, indifferent streets, the air was thick with a damp chill that seeped into his bones, a stark contrast to the warmth he remembered from home. The buildings loomed, gray and imposing, under a perpetually overcast sky. The fog, a constant companion, seemed to mirror the uncertainty that clouded his mind. It was nothing like the vibrant, sun-drenched images he'd seen in the magazines. Those glossy pages promised opportunity, prosperity, and a life of ease. They painted a picture of a welcoming metropolis, a place where hard work was always rewarded. But the truth was a stark and disappointing contrast. The colorful brochures felt like a cruel joke, a mocking reminder of the expectations he carried. Kweisi quickly found himself trapped in a cycle of menial jobs. Factory work, cleaning offices, any task he could find to keep afloat. The work was grueling, the hours long, and the pay barely enough to cover the necessities. Each day was a battle against exhaustion and despair, a constant struggle to make ends meet in this unforgiving city. Yet, a significant portion of his meager earnings was always carefully set aside, meticulously counted, and sent home. It was a lifeline for his family, a tangible symbol of his commitment and sacrifice. Each remittance was a promise, a hope for a better future, a testament to his unwavering love. But in his letters, he carefully curated a narrative of success, hiding the harsh realities of his daily struggles. He painted a picture of progress and prosperity, shielding his loved ones from the burden of his hardship. The truth was buried beneath layers of carefully chosen words, a necessary deception to protect them from worry. Years blurred into a relentless cycle of labor, each day indistinguishable from the last. The monotony was crushing, the exhaustion bone-deep. He worked tirelessly, sacrificing his health and well-being in pursuit of a dream that seemed increasingly distant. The weight of his sacrifices began to take its toll. His laughter, once a vibrant and infectious sound, faded into a distant memory, replaced by a quiet melancholy. The joy that had once filled his life was slowly eroded by the relentless pressure of his circumstances. Finally, after years of separation and hardship, he was able to bring his wife Adawa to London. It was a moment he had longed for, a reunion he had dreamed of countless times. He hoped that her presence would rekindle the spark that had been dimmed by distance and hardship. And their son, Kofi, now a young boy who barely remembered his father's face, joined them. Kweisi hoped to rebuild the bond with his son, to become the father he had always wanted to be. He yearned to fill the void left by his absence and create a loving family unit in this new land. But the reunion was strained, filled with an awkwardness that hung heavy in the air. Years of separation had created a distance that was difficult to bridge. The joy of being together was tempered by the unspoken anxieties and the weight of unmet expectations. Kofi, overwhelmed by the unfamiliarity of his father, remained shy and withdrawn, barely remembering him. The connection they once shared had faded, replaced by a hesitant curiosity and a lingering sense of unease. Life in London proved to be even harder than he'd promised in his letters. The cramped apartment, the constant struggle to make ends meet, the cultural differences all contributed to a growing sense of disillusionment. The dream he had sold them felt increasingly like a false promise. Adawa, uprooted from her familiar surroundings, missed home deeply. The warmth of the African sun, the vibrant community, the familiar rhythms of life, All were replaced by the cold, impersonal reality of London. A deep longing for home gnawed at her heart. And then, they had another son, Yaw, adding to the financial and emotional strain. Another mouth to feed, another life to care for in this challenging environment. The responsibilities mounted, further burdening Kwesi's already weary shoulders. Kwesi, driven by the need to provide for his growing family, found himself working multiple jobs, juggling long hours and exhausting labor. He was constantly rushing from one job to the next, barely having time to catch his breath. He was rarely home, rarely seeing his family, sacrificing precious moments with his children in order to provide for their material needs. The dinner table sat empty, a stark reminder of his absence. He provided for them, ensuring they had food on the table and a roof over their heads. He worked tirelessly to give them a better life, a life free from the hardships he had known. But in the process, he lost connection with them, becoming a provider rather than a father, a distant figure in their lives. The emotional bond that once held them together frayed, replaced by a growing sense of detachment. The treasure he sought, the promise of a better life, seemed to cost him everything he loved, his family, his happiness, his very soul. He was left alone, contemplating the sacrifices he had made and the price he had paid. The shimmering dream of gold, of prosperity and ease, was replaced by the harsh reality of sacrifice, of relentless labor and dwindling returns. The weight of his choices pressed down on him, a constant reminder of the price he had paid for this new world. The distance between them grew wider with each passing day, a chasm of unspoken words and unmet needs. They lived under the same roof, but their hearts were miles apart. They shared a roof, a cramped apartment in a foreign land, but they were increasingly living separate lives, bound together by duty, but disconnected by circumstance. The weight of this new world pressed down on them all, threatening to crush the very bonds that held them together. The family settled into a routine of work and school in London. Kwesi labored endlessly, believing his sacrifice would secure his son's future. Adawa kept their heritage alive, but felt the weight of loneliness. Kofi and Yaw grew up between two worlds, loving a father they barely knew. As teenagers, they dreamed of America, not London. The treasure Kwesi built was not the one his sons wanted. Tragedy struck when Adawa fell ill and passed away. Her death unraveled the family. She had been their anchor. Kofi and Yaw, now young men, sought escape in America. Kwesi begged them to stay, but they left, chasing their own dreams. The cycle of leaving repeated. Kwesi was now the one left behind. Calls and letters faded, his sons built new lives far away. The distance grew, not just in miles but in hearts. Kwesi became a relic of a past they'd outgrown. He had given everything, but lost what mattered most. The treasure he chased had turned to dust. Old and weary, Kwesi returned to Ghana. The village had changed, he was a stranger in his own home. The grand house he'd dreamed of was never built. He lived alone in his family's old compound, haunted by memories. The son he once longed for now felt harsh and empty. Home was not a place, but the people and love he'd left behind. He realized too late that the treasure he sought was never far away. Kwesi's final years were spent in solitude. A nurse visited, paid by his sons in America. He was provided for but craved presents, not money. Faded photos and memories filled his empty house. He had given his sons the world, but lost his own place in it. The house was full of ghosts. Family, laughter, love left behind. He had built a life of sacrifice but forgotten joy. The silence was the final accounting of his life. As his strength faded, Kwesi felt the weight of his years pressing down on him. The vibrant energy that once propelled him across continents had dwindled, leaving him frail and confined to his bed. He knew his time was near, and a deep-seated yearning for peace washed over him. It was then, with a heart heavy with unspoken words, that Kwesi called for the village priest, Father Michael. He sought solace, understanding, and perhaps, a final absolution. He confessed his regrets, not sins in the traditional sense, but a profound misunderstanding of life's true purpose. He spoke of choices made, paths taken, and the relentless pursuit of a dream that had ultimately led him astray. His voice, raspy and weak, carried the weight of decades spent chasing shadows, a burden he desperately needed to unburden before his final breath. He recounted the moments of joy he missed, the relationships he neglected, all in the relentless pursuit of an elusive treasure. "I thought the treasure was elsewhere," he whispered, his voice barely audible, a mere breath against the silence of the room. His eyes, clouded with age and regret, searched the priest's face for understanding, for a glimmer of hope that his life hadn't been entirely in vain. But I left it behind. The realization struck him with the force of a physical blow. The treasure he had so desperately sought, the gold he had envisioned, was not a tangible object hidden in some far-off land. It was the love, the connections, the very essence of life that he had carelessly discarded along the way. I gave everything, my youth, my wife, my sons. He spoke of the sacrifices he had made, the years he had spent away from his family, chasing a mirage that shimmered just beyond his grasp. He remembered the laughter of his children, the warmth of his wife's embrace, memories that now felt like distant echoes in the chambers of his heart, for a dream that cost me all. The dream had become a nightmare, a relentless pursuit that had stripped him bare, leaving him with nothing but regret and the bitter taste of disappointment. He had traded the real treasures of life for the illusion of wealth, a bargain that now seemed utterly foolish and devastatingly painful. Father Michael listened, his heart filled with compassion for the dying man. He had seen this story play out countless times, the tragic tale of those who chase fleeting desires and neglect the enduring bonds of human connection. He reached out and gently said, "You are not a fool, Kwesi." His voice was calm and reassuring, a balm to Kwesi's tormented soul. He sought to ease the man's burden, to help him find peace in his final moments. The real treasure is not a place. It is not a destination to be reached, nor a prize to be won. It is not something external to be acquired, but rather something internal to be cultivated. It is the love, hope, and strength within you. The capacity for kindness, the resilience of the human spirit, the unwavering belief in the goodness of life, these are the true riches that endure beyond the fleeting pleasures of the material world. London, America, these are just places. They are mere locations on a map, devoid of inherent value. It is the experiences we have, the connections we forge, and the memories we create that imbue these places with meaning. The gold you sought was always inside you, the potential for greatness, the capacity for love, the strength to overcome adversity. These were the treasures that lay dormant within his own heart, waiting to be discovered. The rest is just dust. The material possessions, the fleeting moments of glory, the accolades and achievements, all fade away like dust in the wind, leaving behind only the enduring legacy of love and compassion. Kwesi found peace in this truth. The priest's words resonated deep within his soul, washing away the years of regret and replacing them with a sense of profound understanding. He finally grasped the true meaning of life, the treasure that had been within him all along. His search was over. He closed his eyes, a gentle smile gracing his lips, and surrendered to the peace that had finally found him. The setting sun cast a warm golden glow through the window, illuminating his face with a serene light as he drifted into eternal slumber. Kwesi passed away, his sons returning for the funeral. They saw, perhaps for the first time, the true cost of his journey. Father Michael spoke of the human heart's search for meaning. We climb distant mountains, forgetting the treasures in our own garden. The lesson: the kingdom of heaven is within. The peace we seek is not a destination, but a state of being. The real treasure is love, connection, and presence, gold buried in our own backyard. Sometimes what we seek is already home,